It's Mother's Day 2020, Sunday. Suzanne Morphew is getting ready to ride her bike. She's got a long day planned, a day filled with promise and potential new discoveries. But by nightfall, she will be gone, vanished without a trace. Her bike will be found, but not her. And it would seem her disappearance was no accident. What happened to Suzanne? Was this crime meticulously planned, or did things take a dark turn when they already gone too far? Let's get into it. It's Sunday, May 4th, 2020. Suzanne Morphew is living in Maysville, Colorado with her boyfriend, Barry Morphew, who she met online. They are planning to go on a long bike ride today. The couple have only been together for 6 months, but they are very much in love and enjoying exploring the trails near their home with their bikes. Before they set off, Suzanne tells Barry she loves him. It's important because that's the last time anyone will hear from her alive. Barry later tells investigators that he left early to start his work week. He works as an electrician and has to drive out of town, so he gets up at around 5 a.m. When Suzanne wakes up later, she tells him that she wants to ride her bike. Barry says that he asked her if she wanted him to come with her, but she said she preferred to ride alone sometimes. Then she kisses him goodbye and cycles off down the road. Around 9:45 a.m., a neighbor of the couple who lives close to the end of the trail that leads from their home spots what appears to be Suzanne Hess' bike lying off the trail. At first, he thinks that someone may have crashed and injured her, so he calls 911. An hour later, deputies from the Boulder County Sheriff's Office arrive on the scene. They find Suzanne Hess' bike and her cell phone and notice signs that someone has tried to hide them. The tires of the bike have been removed and placed underneath it. A water bottle is wrapped in a t-shirt and stuffed in the spokes. The sheriff's office puts out a statement asking the public for help in finding Suzanne. They say she was last seen wearing gray sweatpants, a purple hoodie and white sneakers. She is described as white, 5 feet, 6 inches tall and 135 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. In the meantime, Barry has been trying to contact Suzanne all morning. She hasn't called or texted him back, which isn't like her. And now her phone goes straight to voicemail. Barry phones his girlfriend's mother and tells her that Suzanne still hasn't been in touch. They decide to go to the local sheriff's office and ask what they can do to help. Barry tells the officers that he knows Suzanne loved to bike and that she would always call him when she finished a ride. But it's now nearly 10 hours since she left the house and still nothing. By 7:30 p.m., the family have taken to social media to try and get the message out to as many people as possible. Still, there is no sign of Suzanne. There are no witnesses, and there were no signs of a struggle where her bike was found. So the police are struggling to piece together what might have happened to her. Over the next few days, the search continues. Barry organizes a team of bikers to search the area while divers check the nearby reservoir. No sign of Suzanne is found. The family put up reward money for information and hire a private investigator. Everyone is desperately hoping for a happy ending, but as the days turn into weeks, the hope begins to fade. As we know it, this is the story of how Suzanne disappeared. But it's really only the beginning. In the next episode, we will see just how suspicious Barry was acting in the days after Suzanne went missing. Join us then to uncover more secrets in this chilling case. See you soon. And now back to the show. Back in Colorado in 2020, the FBI was seeing a rise in romance scams, so they started paying closer attention to online relationships. Little did they know they'd soon be stepping into the middle of a real-life whodunit. Barry had first started communicating with Suzanne in September 2019 over Facebook Messenger. At the time, Suzanne was going through a messy divorce. Barry was the perfect distraction. He told her that he was a widower and they bonded over their grief. Soon their conversations became flirty and they began exchanging intimate photos. By December, they had decided to meet in person. Suzanne moved to Maysville, Colorado to be with Barry. Everything seemed fine until March when Suzanne confided in her sister that she was having problems with her boyfriend. She said that Barry was controlling and wouldn't let her leave the house. She was scared, her sister said. He's brainwashed her. Despite the red flags, though, Suzanne didn't break up with Barry. And on April, the couple celebrated their 6-month anniversary. So what could have caused such a beautiful, vibrant woman to stay in a relationship with a man that was treating her so badly? One theory is that Barry had cast such a strong love spell on Suzanne that she couldn't resist. He showered her with affection and compliments and promised her everything she ever wanted. But behind closed doors, he was a monster. That's why the bruises. That's why the fear. This is one of the possibilities, but it's not the only one. Another theory is that Barry tricked Suzanne. He convinced her to move in with him by pretending to be the love of her life when in reality, he never even loved her at all. To him, she was just another conquest. When the sheriff's office starts looking into Suzanne's past, they discover that Barry isn't exactly who he made himself out to be. For starters, he's not actually a widower. He's just recently divorced. His ex-wife passed away several years ago from an overdose. But Barry doesn't let the truth get in the way of a good story. During the course of their investigation, the police also find out that Barry had taken out several large loans in Suzanne Hess's name before she disappeared. And they discover a life insurance policy for $400,000 that he took out on her. He had also cashed in her 401k and emptied her bank accounts. While they are trying to get to the bottom of Barry's shady dealings, Suzanne's remains are still nowhere to be found. For her family, the not knowing is the worst part. Just knowing that something terrible has happened to her would be better than this gnawing uncertainty. The case goes cold and the media loses interest. But Suzanne's brother and friends refuse to give up on her. They organize fundraisers and vigils to keep the pressure on the police and make sure that Suzanne is not forgotten. Finally, in November 2020, more than 6 months after Suzanne disappeared, Barry is arrested for financial crimes. He's charged with theft, criminal possession of a financial device, and criminal possession of ID documents. At a press conference, the sheriff says that although Barry has not been charged in connection with Suzanne's disappearance, they are still investigating whether he was involved. Barry is released on $2,500 bond and given a GPS ankle monitor. As a condition of his release, he must also refrain from using social media, contacting any witnesses, or leaving the state of Colorado without permission. Of course, he's innocent until proven guilty, but he does look pretty guilty. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. But as for me, I can't stop thinking about Suzanne. Where is she? Is she dead or alive? And if she is dead, where is her body? As the investigation continues, we will continue to bring you updates. So don't forget to subscribe. I have something to tell you that's been eating at me for 2 years now. There are certain things I cannot talk about. I could be fined or even go to jail. I'm not joking. But there are things I feel like I need to get off my chest. Hi, I'm the host. This is Unsolved. And although this is a true crime channel, we do talk about some of the victims because it's only fair. One such victim is Suzanne Morphew. If you aren't familiar with this case, Suzanne was a 49-year-old woman who went missing in May of 2020 from her hometown of Rifle, Colorado. Her husband, the prime suspect in her disappearance, is a man named Barry Morphew. He was a well-known local dentist who had a bit of a reputation. Let's just say he wasn't loved by everyone. And when he was arrested for assaulting a woman at a local spa, many came forward with accusations against him. And as it turns out, Suzanne was one of those women. In the beginning of this case, Barry told police that his wife left him for a younger woman and that she was going to move to Idaho to be with her new boyfriend. But as time went on, the story changed and so did Barry's demeanor. At first, he appeared remorseful and worried about his missing wife. But as the months went on, he started acting more erratic. Now, I've said this before, but a lot of people knew that something was off about Barry. Even if he didn't kill his wife, he definitely killed their relationship long ago. And we know that because of these videos. This is a series of clips taken from the YouTube channel that Barry and Suzanne ran together. If you watch them, you can see that they were once quite happy. But then it appears as though they got a divorce or at least separated. So Barry starts talking directly to the camera and making these strange monologues. Barry would talk about his loneliness and how he missed Suzanne, but he would also mention her often in a derogatory way. He would blame her for everything that was wrong in his life, like all of his unhappiness and the state of their marriage. It was really bizarre. And no matter what anyone else said, Barry insisted that Suzanne was the problem. Then he started talking about moving on and finding a new love. And again, he blamed Suzanne for being a problem. At one point, he started telling people that he wanted to put Suzanne in a home and get a younger hot wife instead. So yes, it appears that Barry and Suzanne were not in a good place at the time that she disappeared. And when investigators started digging into their lives, they uncovered text messages between Suzanne and a longtime friend. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but this is very important. Barry allowed the investigators to look at Suzanne's phone, which was unusual. Most people don't hand over their cell phones without a warrant, especially when they are the prime suspect in a missing persons case. But Barry let them have it, which goes to show that he was truly innocent, right? Well, I think it was because he knew it would help him. When police looked through Suzanne's phone, they found these messages and they weren't just friendly banter between two friends. No, these messages showed that Suzanne was going through hell. She was desperate to get away from her husband and start over somewhere else. On April of 2020, Suzanne sent a message to a friend that read, "I want a fresh start. I want to go to Idaho." 2 days later, she texted, "I won't be needing anything except a U-Haul. I will be getting out. He can have the house and the practice." A few days after that, she wrote, "I'm gonna take off the ring. He doesn't deserve it." So clearly, Suzanne wasn't planning on returning home to Rifle, Colorado. She was planning on starting a new life in Idaho. But why? What was so bad about her marriage that she was willing to walk out on her whole life, leave behind her possessions, sell her house and start over somewhere else? Well, as it turns out, there was a lot of bad stuff. As I said, there was the assault that Barry committed at the spa where multiple witnesses heard Suzanne screaming for help. And then there was that strange incident that happened in Idaho where Barry almost hit a cyclist. The woman who was almost hit ended up suing Barry. And when he went to court for it, text messages were presented as evidence. Those text messages were between Barry and Suzanne. In it, Barry could be seen gloating about how he almost hit a woman with his truck and calling her a crazy cyclist. Police also discovered text messages between Suzanne and another one of her friends. They were talking about a trip that Suzanne took to Idaho about a month before she vanished. She told her friend that she was staying in a hotel in Idaho and that she was doing okay. She wrote, "It has been 3 weeks since Barry has called me. I have not talked to him. I have slept in the same bed. I miss my babies. I haven't cried yet." And then Suzanne told a friend about an incident that happened between her and Barry. She said that she was having panic attacks and that Barry made fun of her. She wrote, "He says I'm making it all up. That I need to pull myself together." At one point, Suzanne also asked her friend for advice on whether or not she should stay in her marriage or leave Barry. Her friend told her to leave. And Suzanne responded by saying, "I think I will. But I don't know how. He has isolated me from my friends and family. And if I were to leave, I would have nowhere to go. I'm also afraid he will take the kids and I will never see them again. It will break my heart. I don't know what to do." This just goes to show that Barry was horrible. Not only did he commit assault, he isolated Suzanne from her friends and family, knowing that it would make her less likely to leave him. He tried to convince her that she was crazy and made fun of her panic attacks, all while calling himself the victim. Barry made it seem as though Suzanne was a terrible person, but the truth was the exact opposite. The friend that she confided in told investigators that Suzanne was anything but violent and was a peaceful person. Her name was Sharon Gabriel, and she was one of Suzanne's closest friends. Sharon said she was shocked when she heard about the allegations against her friend because Suzanne was so sweet and non-confrontational. Sharon told investigators that she remembers Suzanne confiding in her about her unhappy marriage and asking for advice. Sharon said that she always told her friend to get a divorce, but Suzanne was scared. She was scared that Barry would take the children and she would never see them again. Sharon said that Suzanne was always afraid that Barry would hurt her or the children. And those weren't just idle fears. On December of 2019, just 5 months before Suzanne vanished, she called the police and filed a report. She accused Barry of assaulting her during a fight over money. According to the police report, Suzanne told officers that she and Barry argued often. And that time was over finances. Barry thought that she was spending too much money on her work. Suzanne felt that Barry was controlling her and keeping her isolated. So yes, Suzanne was afraid of Barry, which is why she didn't want to leave him. She was scared that he would retaliate by taking the kids and destroying her life. But here's where things get weird. After Suzanne vanished, Barry was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice and tampering with evidence. The prosecution believes that Barry killed Suzanne, but they don't have enough evidence to charge him with murder just yet. During a hearing in June of 2021, a prosecutor said, "We intend to file additional charges against Mr. Morphew, including murder in the death of Suzanne Morphew. However, we are still awaiting additional investigative results, lab results, and other information." As for Barry, he maintains his innocence. He claims that Suzanne left him and that he hasn't seen her since she left. He's also suggested that her brother may have played a role in her disappearance, but so far, the police haven't picked up her brother for questioning. Her case remains open and her body has never been found. But I personally believe that Barry is responsible for her disappearance. Not only did he have a history of violence, but he also had a motive. Police uncovered text messages that proved that their relationship was horrible. Not only that, but Barry was talking about getting rid of Suzanne long before she vanished. And let's not forget that he allowed police to search his house and his wife's phone, which goes to show that he had nothing to hide. Today's question is, what are digital footprints and how can they be used to build a timeline of events? This question comes from a viewer. If you have questions about digital footprints, which we will get to in just a minute, please leave them in the comments below. We will try to address them at the end of this episode. On June 23, 2021, after an extensive search, the body of 48-year-old Barry White was found near his SUV off of Forest Road in rural Columbia County, Wisconsin. His cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. One day earlier on June 22, Barry had been reported missing by his wife Suzanne. She told the police that she hadn't seen him for several days, but when she went to check on him, he was gone. Their home was also ransacked. It appeared someone had broken in and stolen some things. The police began searching for Barry, but it took them several days to find his body. And what they learned from his phone and other digital devices shed light on what actually happened to him. In this episode, we are going to look at how the authorities built a timeline of events using digital footprints. First of all, what is a digital footprint? A digital footprint is simply any information digitally stored about a person, place, or thing. A person leaves behind a digital footprint every time they do something online, use their phone, make a purchase, visit a website, or even log into a social media account. Digital footprints come in many forms, including internet history, location data, device data, and usage patterns. Every click, like, and share leaves behind a digital footprint that can tell you a lot about a person. In Barry White's case, the investigators obtained a search warrant for his cell phone and electronic devices to determine if they contained any useful information. They weren't sure where to start, so they decided to go back to basics. They checked his phone records to see who he had called and who had called him in the days leading up to his disappearance. But that wasn't very helpful. Most of the numbers were blocked or didn't match any known phone numbers. However, one number in particular caught their attention. It matched the number of a local motel. As part of their investigation, they then obtained surveillance camera footage from the motel showing Barry's vehicle pulling into the parking lot on June 21 at approximately 6:30 p.m. He stayed there for about 12 minutes before driving away. The investigators confirmed that the person staying in the room was Barry because they could see his silhouette through the window, and he came out carrying the same distinctive backpack that was later found with his body. After watching the footage, the investigators now had reason to believe that Barry spent the night at the motel, but they still didn't know why. So they continued digging for answers. Next, the investigators examined the GPS data from Barry's phone. Using this information, they created a rough timeline of his activities leading up to his disappearance. They found that on June 20, Barry traveled south from his home in Portage, Wisconsin to Beloit, Wisconsin. He remained there for about 2 hours and then drove back home. On June 21, Barry drove north to Waupun, Wisconsin, where he stayed for about 5 hours. It was during this trip that he ended up at the motel. Later that night, he returned home. There was nothing particularly suspicious about this travel pattern, so they continued investigating. The investigators also examined his activity logs on his computer and cell phone to see if he conducted any internet searches. Maybe he searched for directions to Waupun or for a motel in the area. Again, nothing. Not only did he not search for these things, but he hadn't really used his computer or cell phone at all since June 17. The investigators also looked through his recently deleted text messages to see if he had any unfinished conversations with friends or family. There was nothing. His email account was completely inactive after June. It was almost as if he disappeared off the face of the earth. The investigators wanted to track Barry's location on June 22, but his phone showed no location pings after midnight that day. However, the ping from his phone on the morning of June 22 placed him at the same motel where they found his vehicle. This meant that after checking into the motel on June 21, he left and returned sometime in the early morning hours of June 22. But where did he go? The investigators didn't know. But there was still one more thing they could check. His bank account had been used at a Subway restaurant in Waupun, Wisconsin, on June 22 at 9:25 a.m. With this new information, the investigators went back to the surveillance footage at the Subway. They were hoping to see Barry there, but it wasn't that easy. The initial footage they reviewed did not contain any images of Barry entering the restaurant. So they widened the time frame to include the previous hour. There, entering the restaurant, was Barry. He was alone. Behind him entered another man, and behind him was a woman. With this new surveillance footage in hand, the investigators now had a pretty good idea of what happened to Barry. But they still needed to confirm it. The next step was to identify the two people who entered the restaurant with Barry. That turned out to be fairly easy. The lead investigator had worked on a narcotics investigation a few months prior that involved one of the men who entered the Subway with Barry. His name was Michael Radowicz. The other man was identified as Brian Nuess, a relative of Suzanne's. Now that they knew who these men were, the investigators checked their criminal histories. They discovered that both Radowicz and Nuess had lengthy criminal histories, including multiple arrests for burglary and theft. The investigators now believed that Barry was robbed and murdered by these two men. But they needed to get a confession. To obtain a confession, the investigators decided to bring in Nuess and Radowicz for questioning. When they questioned Radowicz, he denied knowing anything about Barry's murder. However, when they searched his house, they found a pair of Barry's pants hidden in his basement. Realizing that he was in trouble, Radowicz confessed to everything. He told the investigators that on June 21, he met Barry at the motel and invited him to go to Waupun to buy some crystal meth. On the way there, Barry dropped them off at a gas station and went to get some money out of an ATM. While Barry was gone, they stole his wallet and phone and then picked him up again and brought him to his house. That evening, at Barry's house, they stole a safe, a TV, and a truckload of tools. Then they took Barry to the ATM again and withdrew $1,000. At some point during all of this, Nuess shot Barry 3 times. They left him off the road in the town of Roxbury, then returned to the motel. The next morning, they returned to Barry's house to get more items and then went to the Subway for breakfast. After obtaining a confession from Radowicz, the investigators arrested him along with Nuess and Suzanne. According to the criminal complaint, when the police interviewed Suzanne, she admitted that she killed Barry after he discovered she was having an affair with Nuess. She said that Nuess shot Barry in self-defense. However, the autopsy report showed that Barry was shot 3 times while he was still alive. The district attorney charged all 3 of them with first-degree intentional homicide, burglary, theft, and additional charges. So now let's answer those questions that you may have left in the comments. If you want to ask questions about future episodes, please leave them in the comments below. Comment from a viewer: how does the police get a hold of the data? The police typically obtain digital footprints through legal means such as search warrants, subpoenas, or court orders. In some cases, they may also receive information voluntarily from service providers or individuals. Comment from a viewer: why do mobile phones have location tracking features? Location tracking on mobile phones is designed to provide users with location-based services and features. It allows phones to access features like GPS navigation, location-based advertising, weather updates, and location sharing. Users can choose to turn off location tracking if they don't want it. Comment from a viewer: can the police track your phone if it's off? Generally speaking, if the phone is turned off, the police cannot track its location. However, depending on the circumstances, they may still be able to access some information. For example, if the phone is connected to a Wi-Fi network, the police may be able to obtain a search warrant to access the Wi-Fi logs and track the IP address. And today's question is, what was Barry doing on the day Suzanne was reported missing? Specifically, what was Barry doing between 3:30 and 6:30 p.m.? Because that's when she was presumably dead in her bedroom. Well, it turns out Barry was a very busy man on the day Suzanne disappeared. Very busy. We know this because he allowed investigators to track his cell phone, and they uncovered that in the time period when Suzanne was presumably being murdered, Barry was driving around town stopping at several trash bins. Now, before we go any further here, I just want to say that none of this is proof that Barry was guilty of anything. This is simply what we know based on the facts that have been made public so far. So please keep an open mind. So let's take a look at the timeline. The first stop that Barry made was on West 9th Street. It was 3:38 p.m. and that was about 3 blocks from where Suzanne lived. But he didn't go directly to her house. He drove past her house. In fact, he drove right by it. He stopped at the trash bin, put something in it, and then he drove back towards Suzanne's home. He turned onto her street, passed her home, and then continued driving. He then went to a different part of town and stopped at 2 more garbage cans. He did this once again at about 4:37 p.m. and then again at about 5:25 p.m. But those weren't his final stops for the evening. It would be another hour after his last stop at one of the trash bins that Barry called the police. That was at 6:25 p.m. Just over an hour after he had put something into that last garbage can, he calls the cops and reports Suzanne missing. So why was Barry going to all these trash bins? Well, when he spoke with authorities, Barry told them that he had been cleaning out his truck and he was getting rid of debris. Now, I don't know if you remember, but the bed of Barry's truck was full of holes. So you can imagine how easy it would be for things to fall through the holes and end up on the ground. And apparently that's exactly what was happening. What was also happening is that the police had no idea whether or not Barry was telling the truth. They couldn't verify it either way. So they simply took Barry's word for it and documented the stops for further review. When Barry went to speak with authorities, he must have known that his every move was being tracked by way of his cell phone. And maybe he knew that those moves would be scrutinized by investigators. Otherwise, why would he have told the police that he was cleaning out his truck? Why would he have volunteered that piece of information unless he thought it would sound reasonable and plausible to authorities? If he was planning on throwing out some receipts, old clothes, a broken headlight, whatever, why not just wait until he got home? Why go out of your way to stop at 4, 5, 6 different trash bins on the other side of town? Why drive past Suzanne's house twice during that time period when she was presumably being murdered, unless, of course, he was trying to throw out evidence? The problem here is that we don't know what was actually in those garbage cans. Barry told the police it was just debris, but there's no way for us to know if that was true. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Now, here's what I find interesting. None of this was new information to the public. All of this had been made public well over a year ago. What's interesting is that recently, while going through the court documents, these activities on the night in question were highlighted. And when I read that Barry had gone to all of these different trash bins, I couldn't help but think that maybe that detail was being emphasized for a reason. You see, back when these details were initially released to the public, everyone focused on the fact that Barry had driven past Suzanne's house twice during the time frame when she was supposedly being murdered. Everyone focused on that detail. No one paid much attention to the trash bin detail. But now, months later, when it was brought to my attention, I couldn't help but wonder if the significance of those trash bin stops are being downplayed. If you were the lead investigator on this case, would you really let Barry off the hook so easily? Would you just accept his explanation that he was cleaning out his truck and getting rid of debris? Or would you dig a little deeper? Would you ask Barry to identify the items that he threw away? Would you check those garbage bins to see if they still had his stuff in them? Would you bring Barry in to take a polygraph test? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. The point is that if you were the lead investigator, you probably wouldn't feel comfortable letting Barry get away with his story, especially since he admitted to driving past Suzanne's house multiple times during that time period. Again, none of this is proof that Barry is guilty of anything. This is merely a look at what we know based on the facts that have been made public thus far. Another thing I found interesting is that only a couple weeks ago, a friend of Barry's came forward and claimed that Barry admitted to him that he was having an affair with Suzanne. And if that's not bad enough, Barry's brother-in-law also came forward and claimed that Barry had confessed to him that he had been seeing Suzanne. Now I'm not saying that Barry is guilty of anything, but if he was having an affair with Suzanne, why would he purposely drive past her house twice during the time period when she was being murdered? Why would he do that unless he wanted the police to believe that he wasn't involved in her disappearance? It could be that Barry was having an affair with Suzanne, and it could be that he had nothing to do with her murder. But why would he have driven by her house twice during the time period when she was being killed unless he was trying to make himself look innocent? You see, it doesn't take common sense to realize that driving past the missing person's house multiple times during the time period when they were being murdered is strange. What's common sense is to avoid that area entirely if you know that someone is missing. We don't know whether or not Barry acted alone in killing Suzanne or whether someone else was involved. But someone in this situation should have realized that driving around town and stopping at multiple trash bins in the time period when Suzanne was allegedly being murdered would look very suspicious. Someone in this situation should have known better than to drive past Suzanne's house multiple times during that time period. What's your opinion? Do you think Barry was trying to dispose of evidence? Was he throwing out those receipts? Old clothes, broken headlight, whatever, or was he throwing out evidence? Do you think Barry was having an affair with Suzanne? Let me know your thoughts in a comment below. This question comes from one of our viewers. They ask, can I talk about the first arrest and the case being dismissed? To answer this viewer's question, yes, I can talk about the first arrest and the case being dismissed. Everybody knows by now that Barry Morphew was arrested in 2021 and charged in connection with the case. But what a lot of people don't know or may have forgotten is that the case was actually dismissed in 2022. The charge against Barry at that time was tampering with a deceased human body. That was the only charge he was facing. He was not charged with murder. And what happened was there was no physical evidence that linked Barry directly to the crime scene. There was no DNA, there were no fingerprints. And because of that, the district attorney at the time, he decided to drop the charges. The case was dismissed in January of 2022. And the reason for that was insufficient evidence. Now, it wasn't sufficient enough to go to trial. Now, when the case was dismissed, it was dismissed without prejudice. That means that the DA at the time left the door open to refile those charges if more evidence did come forward. So technically, the case isn't completely closed, but they dismissed it. They said, hey, right now we don't have enough evidence. If something else does come forward, we will definitely take another look at this and possibly bring these charges again. Barry has always maintained his innocence. He's done multiple interviews since then saying that he had nothing to do with Suzanne's disappearance. When asked why the DA dropped the charges, Barry says that he believes that the DA's office was trying to pin this on him because of his popularity. Barry still maintains his innocence, saying that he did not have anything to do with Suzanne's disappearance. Now, when the charges were dropped, Barry's wife, Candace Cooper Morphew, she went on a media outlet and basically said, how could they drop the charges? And when the news anchor there said, well, I guess that means they don't think they have enough evidence to convict him, Candace got really mad and she said no, they just don't want to convict him because of who he is, because of his popularity. Now, to me, I think that the DA's office did the right thing. You can't just go charging people with stuff. And I totally understand that. You know, this is a very emotional case for a lot of people, including myself. But at the end of the day, you can't just charge somebody and say, hey, we think you did it. You need to have some kind of evidence. And what's crazy about this case is there's not much evidence, but there is evidence. For example, Suzanne's cell phone was found in a national park. And if you watch any of our other videos, there are several weird things surrounding that cell phone. The signal on her cell phone didn't match up. There were a bunch of weird things going on there. Then you have the fact that she disappeared and then about a month later, her car shows up. Not only that, her car was full of stuff, but it was also clean. There was no signs of struggle. Her purse was in there, her wallet was in there. Everything was organized. It just doesn't make sense. But then you have the fact that Barry was the last person to see her alive and he gave a bunch of different stories about what happened the night that she disappeared. His story changed. At first, he said that he dropped her off at a hotel, but then later said that she never showed up at the hotel. And then he said that he actually picked her up after that. So there's a lot of weird things. But I think at that time, the DA felt that it wasn't enough to charge him with murder. Now, this is just speculation on my part. I don't know that for sure. But I think he didn't want to charge him with murder because you need more than circumstantial evidence. You need hard evidence. And I don't think they had that at that time. So they probably thought, let's just charge him with tampering with a deceased human body, which would fit because of the fact that, they believe that he burned her body. But even that, there's not much evidence there either, because when they searched his property, they only found trace amounts of what they believe was human remains. Nothing conclusive. Now, after the case was dropped, Barry did an interview with Dr. Oz and he said, "Hey, I'm innocent. Let's put a lie detector test on me." Dr. Oz said, "No, we don't need to do that. I believe you. I think you're innocent." Well, just recently, I talked with somebody who's involved with the case and they told me that Barry did offer to take a polygraph test. Now, the person that I spoke with, they work for the district attorney's office. They're not supposed to be talking to the media. I'm not going to reveal their name. But they told me that Barry offered to take a polygraph test. He was willing to do that, but the DA's office said no, we don't need to do that. We believe that you're telling the truth. So Barry, even after being arrested and having the case dropped, he still wanted to prove his innocence. And not only that, but Barry is still offering a $100,000 reward for information in this case. He says that he wants justice for Suzanne. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I've talked about this before, but Barry at one point was on a show called My Strange Addiction. This was before all of this ever happened, of course. And on this show, he basically talks about how he loves fire. He has pyromania. In fact, in this episode, they show a reenactment of him setting fire to a bunch of his old championship trophies. And in the episode, he says, "I just love the excitement of fire. I love the power of fire. And sometimes I lose control of fire." When he was on Dr. Oz, he was asked about that. "Hey, you made these statements about fire. Is that true? Do you set fires?" And Barry said, "Yeah, I did say that, but that was a long time ago. I was just making a TV show. I don't have pyromania anymore." So that brings us up to speed with everything that's happening. Again, Barry was arrested, charged with tampering with a deceased human body, and then the charges were dropped in January of 2022 because there was not sufficient evidence. The case has not been reopened since then. I personally believe that Barry is innocent. I think he had nothing to do with Suzanne's disappearance. But there are a lot of unanswered questions. A lot of people are saying that he burned her body. But I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me. On June 6, 2023, human remains were discovered in a remote area of Teller County, Colorado. On July 1, 2023, the authorities confirmed that the remains belonged to Suzanne Marie Morphew. She went missing in May of 2021. Suzanne was reported missing by her estranged husband, Joe Morphew. According to Joe, he had not heard from his wife for about 2 weeks and he didn't know where she was. The two had been having problems for some time and it seemed like they might get a divorce. Suzanne had even filed a restraining order against Joe because he had made threats against her life. It seemed strange that Joe would report his wife missing considering their rocky relationship. But when police went to speak to him, he appeared very concerned and distraught. He told the officers that Suzanne loved hiking and maybe something had happened to her while she was out on one of her trails. The police found it odd that Joe knew exactly where she liked to hike, but they followed up on it anyway. A search of the area turned up nothing, and the days turned into weeks with still no sign of Suzanne. Joe kept going on the media to beg people for information and claim that he missed his wife. After a month of searching, the police got a tip that someone had seen Suzanne at a motel in Pueblo, Colorado. They believe she might have gone there to meet up with her boyfriend. The police found surveillance footage of her entering the motel, but after that, her trail went cold. A couple of months later, Joe went on Dr. Phil to talk about the case. During the interview, he started talking about how much he loved his wife and missed her. He denied having anything to do with her disappearance. At one point, he even broke down in tears. It was such an emotional performance that the host and the audience were moved to tears. And I'm sure everyone watching thought, what a poor guy. What a sad situation. But what the public didn't know was that Joe had secretly hired a forensic team to dig up dirt on Suzanne. They had a private investigator following her and recording her every move. So Joe knew a lot more than he was letting on. That same month, the police received a tip that Suzanne was spotted hitchhiking near Idaho Springs, Colorado. An extensive search was conducted in that area, but nothing was found. Soon after that, the case went cold. For the next year and a half, there was almost no activity in the case. Then suddenly in November of 2022, Suzanne's sister filed a lawsuit against Joe, claiming that he was responsible for her disappearance. The suit alleged that Joe had planned to kill Suzanne and collect on a $500,000 life insurance policy. Then in December of 2022, the FBI released a video showing the Morphew family home in the process of being foreclosed on. The house had a blue tarp over the front door. No one had lived in the house since Suzanne disappeared. It looked abandoned. In March of 2023, Joe Morphew's brother came forward and said that he believed Joe had killed Suzanne. Joe responded by saying his brother needed help and that he hadn't done anything wrong. He claimed he was innocent and continued to proclaim his love for Suzanne. Then finally, on May 9, 2023, Suzanne's car was found in a parking garage in downtown Denver. It wasn't too far away from where she disappeared. This led to speculation that maybe she had been kidnapped and taken from that spot. But I don't understand why it took them so long to find her car. Maybe it was in plain sight the whole time and they just didn't see it. When the news broke that her car had been found, investigators asked the public to check any trail cameras that might have picked up Suzanne walking by them. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. And then on June, a resident in the area checked their trail camera footage and found Suzanne walking through their property. The images showed her wearing the same shoes and carrying the same backpack that she had on when she disappeared. But it also revealed something else. In the background of the picture, you could see Joe Morphew. He was right behind Suzanne, following her. Whoever set up the trail camera recognized Joe and immediately called the police. Officers were sent to the location where they found the camera and Joe's truck. He was brought in for questioning, and during that questioning, he admitted that he had killed Suzanne. He took the police to where he had buried her and they recovered her remains. I want to say one thing here. Obviously, we don't know everything that happened in this case. We only know what the media has put out there. It is possible that Joe acted alone in killing Suzanne. But if he didn't, he is not going to implicate anyone else, especially not his brother, who he claims needs help. Also, there are times in these cases when the killer will try to lead the police to the body to make themselves look good. This doesn't seem like one of those situations. So now we have a body and we have answers. Just kidding. There are still so many questions. Why did Joe kill Suzanne? How did he kill her? Why did he wait so long to get rid of her body? And why did he bury her so close to his house? Was it really an accident that the trail camera caught him with her? Or was it planned? If this was an insurance scam from the beginning, why would he keep coming out in the media to grieve over the loss of his wife? Did he really love her, or was it all an act? And why did he let the dog live if he had planned to kill Suzanne from the start? If he didn't plan to kill her and it was a crime of passion, how could he live with himself knowing that the dog had no one else? We've said it before and we'll say it again, family means everything. And that is certainly the case with Barry Morphew. In this exclusive interview, Barry's two daughters show they are just as determined to prove their father's innocence as he is. Hear me out. Before we get into this, just a reminder, this is an exclusive interview you will not find anywhere else. So if you like what you see, hit subscribe for more updates. Barry's daughters, Kat and Mallory, were just 18 and 21 when their lives changed forever. In early May 2021, the world watched as Barry made a desperate plea for his wife, Suzanne, who had vanished without a trace. Now, over a year later, Kat and Mallory have grown up fast, showing strength and maturity beyond their years. Sitting down with us exclusively, the sisters spoke openly and honestly about life after their mother's disappearance, being thrust into the public spotlight, and most importantly, their undying belief in their father's innocence. Hi, I'm the host. Thank you so much for joining us for this exclusive interview here on our channel. It's great to be back in the studio with you. It's also great to have both of you here. And I know this is probably very overwhelming for you. You're stepping into the public eye like this for the first time. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
I don't know how comfortable you girls are with people knowing your last name because it's pretty well known right now, but you guys okay with that? Yep. Okay, great. So, let's go ahead and just dive right into things. How has life been since your mom went missing? I guess starting off with you, Mallory. Well, it's been definitely hard. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of crying, a lot of questions unanswered. But we're getting through it the best we can. And I think that's all you can do when something like this happens. Just take it day by day. Life has been difficult. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, losing my mom, which is someone that I was extremely close with, and who was also my best friend, it's been really difficult. But I have my sister, I have my dad, I have amazing friends, and an amazing support system. So without them, it would have been a lot harder. Kat, how about you? I would say similar to Mallory. It's, definitely been a lot harder than I expected. I didn't think it would be this hard to go a day without her or without seeing her. She was such a big part of my life. We were extremely close. And, there's definitely been a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. But I also have Mallory. I have the best friends. I have an amazing support system. And I'm lucky enough to still have my dad who's pushing forward and trying to find out what happened to my mom. And I think it's important for people to remember that these girls grew up in the public eye. This is not something that they asked for. They are extremely private people. So we really appreciate you guys being here and being willing to share your story. That's huge. Thank you. I wanted to ask you guys individually, one at a time, if you could kind of describe your mom for people who may not know a whole lot about her or may not have met her. So, Mallory, let's start with you. She was the best mom. She was the best mom in the world. There's nobody that could ever compare to her. She was an amazing cook. She loved doing puzzles, loved spending time with us, loved going on walks. She was just the best mom. If anyone ever had the opportunity to meet her, they instantly fell in love with her. She just had that effect on people. And she's one of a kind. And, I miss her every single day. How about you, Kat? My mom was my best friend. She was the strongest person I knew. And she was the most caring, loving woman I know. And, I looked up to her, not only as a mom, but as a friend and as a woman. And she taught me so much. She was always there for me, always believed in me. She always told me I could accomplish anything that I put my mind to. And she showed me what a strong woman should be like. And I'll never forget that. She was one of a kind, just like my sister said. And I miss her every single day, too. I wanted to ask you guys, what has it been like living under the public eye, having your last name be so connected to this case, knowing that people around you may be talking about you? I think it's been difficult. I know it's affected both of us in different ways. For example, my dad and I are extremely private people. We don't like to share personal details. We like to keep to ourselves. So having that out there and having everybody know, it's definitely been difficult. It's also been difficult trying to have people believe in him and believe that he didn't do anything when they see a headline saying, quote, Barry Morphew's daughters speak out, and then they see another headline that says, quote, Barry Morphew won't speak out. And it's really hard for people to wrap their minds around the fact that we're not going against each other. And we're both supporting each other. And I think that's what's hard for people to understand. And I agree with that. And I think another thing that's hard for people to understand is the fact that we're not allowed to talk about the case. And I think that sucks because we obviously want to clear our dad's name. But we're not allowed to do that because of the ongoing investigation. And it's frustrating because we just want to tell our side of the story. And it hurts our feelings when people try to make up their own stories or believe false information that they read online because we wish we could clear it up for them. But we can't. So it's really hard for us to sit back and watch and not be able to say anything. And I think it's important that people understand that you're not making this up. Your dad isn't making this up. You all genuinely believe he's innocent. Of course. We love our dad. He's our dad. He's raised us our entire lives. And we know him better than anybody else does. And we know that he would never do something like that. And we also know that he did not kidnap our mom. And we know that in our hearts. And that's what matters most. Is there anything you guys would like to say directly to people who may be doubting your father's innocence or to those who say that you should stop defending him? Well, I think the biggest thing that I want people to know is that we are not making this up. We genuinely believe our dad is innocent. And if that means standing by him and supporting him, that's what we're going to do. And nothing anybody says is going to change that. And I think that's what they need to understand. I completely agree with that. And I think the other thing that I want people to know is that this isn't a TV show. We aren't getting paid to be here. Our names are being dragged through the mud and it's hurtful. And if they could just have some compassion for us because we're going through something that nobody should ever have to go through, I think that would be great. Do you have a message for your mom that you would like to share with her? If she could hear you, what would you say? I would just tell her that I love her and I miss her. I would tell her that I'm proud of her. And I would tell her that she raised two amazing daughters and that she was an amazing mom. And I just want her to know that I'll never forget her and that she's always on my mind and in my heart. If there's anything that your mom would want you to do, if she could tell you, what do you think that would be? I think she would want us to keep pushing forward and to stay strong. She was the strongest person I knew. And I think she would want us to honor her by staying strong and keeping moving forward. And I wanted to ask you both the same question. If you could say one thing to your dad right now, what would that be? Probably just to say thank you because he's worked so hard not only for us, but for our mom and to find out what happened to her. And he's gone through hell and back and he still pushes through every single day for her and for us, and we're extremely grateful for that. My dad has worked so hard to raise us to be good human beings. And if I could say one thing to him, it would be thank you. Because without him, we wouldn't be where we are today. And he's the strongest man I know and he's taught us how to be strong and he's always believed in us and supported us. And I just wanted to say thank you to him. Barry's daughters are speaking out. They want to set the record straight. They want to help their father, their hero, the best man that they know. And they want to do it on their terms. With the love and support of each other, Barry and his daughters are ready to face whatever comes next. After her remains were discovered near a rural country road, prosecutors have decided to reopen the cold case from 1986. Fast forward a few months and a dramatic turn of events has occurred. A new indictment has been issued in 2024, bringing fresh eyes and updated evidence to this decades-old mystery. But what exactly led to this decision? What new revelations have surfaced after all these years? And how is this case unfolding in the public's eye once again? Join us as we delve deep into this captivating narrative. We'll explore the key moments that have brought this case back into the spotlight, uncovering the details that have kept the community on edge. It was on the 3rd of April in 1986 when Suzanne went missing, vanished without a trace. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance were nothing short of perplexing. One moment she was there, the next, gone. Her absence cast a long shadow over the community, raising questions that echoed through the years. Fast forward to 2023 when her remains were found. This discovery sent shockwaves rippling through the community, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the years. The hope for answers, though, quickly turned into a pressing demand for justice. With renewed determination, the authorities embarked on a journey to piece together the fragments of what transpired all those years ago. They delved into the annals of the past, hoping to find clues that could shed light on Suzanne's untimely demise. As the investigation deepened, a critical piece of evidence emerged: a new forensic analysis of the remains found. This analysis provided insights that were not available during the initial investigation, offering a potential breakthrough in the case. The significance of this discovery was profound. It not only gave a face to the victim, confirming her identity, but also opened a window into the circumstances surrounding her death. With a name now attached to the remains, the case took on a more personal dimension, galvanizing the community to seek justice for Suzanne. The news of the identification spread like wildfire, stirring a mix of emotions among the residents. Memories resurfaced, stories were shared, and a collective determination to seek closure grew. The community was united in their grief and their desire for justice. However, as the dust settled and the community began to grapple with the weight of the discovery, questions arose. What did this forensic analysis reveal? How did it contribute to the reopening of the case? And what impact did it have on the community's understanding of Suzanne's tragic fate? These questions echoed in the minds of many, underscoring the need for answers in this haunting mystery. Now let's shift our focus to the latest development in this gripping case. After the discovery of Suzanne's remains and the subsequent forensic analysis, the grand jury has delivered its verdict, paving the way for a new chapter in this long-dormant investigation. This decision carries significant weight, marking a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice for Suzanne. The issuance of the indictment is a testament to the tireless efforts of the investigators who have dedicated countless hours to this case over the years. It reflects their commitment to seeking justice for Suzanne and providing closure to her family and friends. The indictment serves as an important step towards accountability. It sends a clear message that those responsible for Suzanne's death will be held liable for their actions. The legal process is now set in motion, and the community can take solace in knowing that justice is being served. However, it's crucial to remember that an indictment is just one step in the long journey towards resolution. As the case proceeds, it will be met with challenges and complexities. Nevertheless, the strength and unity of the community will be vital in ensuring that justice prevails. The road ahead may be arduous, but the pursuit of justice for Suzanne remains steadfast. The community stands united, determined to honor her memory and ensure that her tragic fate does not go in vain. The issuance of the indictment brings renewed hope for closure and a sense of collective responsibility to see the case through to its finality. Moving forward, it is essential to respect the ongoing legal proceedings and allow the justice system to take its course. The community's support and vigilance will be instrumental in ensuring that justice is served. As the case continues to unfold, the determination to seek justice for Suzanne remains unwavering. The quest for answers and accountability has brought the community together, and their solidarity will be a driving force in the days ahead. While the journey towards closure is still unfolding, the recent developments offer a glimmer of hope and a renewed commitment to ensuring that Suzanne's legacy lives on. Let's now delve deeper into the details of the indictment and the charges against Timothy Taylor. The document reveals a chilling account of the alleged crimes, shedding light on the extent of his involvement. One of the prominent charges centers around the allegation that Timothy Taylor acted with deliberate cruelty. This suggests that the killing was not merely accidental or impulsive, but rather a calculated and premeditated act. The degree of premeditation and the underlying motive continue to captivate the public's curiosity, leaving them eager to uncover the darker aspects of this case. Another significant aspect highlighted in the indictment is the use of a firearm. The inclusion of such a detail underscores the severity of the alleged crime and the potential consequences faced by Timothy Taylor. The use of a weapon adds another layer of complexity and gravity to the charges against him. The indictment paints a grim picture of the events surrounding Suzanne's death, shedding light on the potential motives and the means employed by Timothy Taylor. The charges against him are not merely legal accusations, but rather an attempt to piece together the tragic events that unfolded in 1986. As the case progresses, these charges will be scrutinized, evidence will be presented, and the full extent of Timothy Taylor's alleged involvement in Suzanne's death will be explored. The journey towards justice for Suzanne is far from over, and the indictment serves as a crucial step in unraveling the truth behind her untimely demise. While the indictment provides some clarity, it also raises additional questions about the relationship between Timothy Taylor and Suzanne, the potential connection between them, and the possible motives behind the alleged crime. These questions continue to circulate, keeping the community both intrigued and deeply concerned. As the case moves forward, it will be essential to examine the dynamics between the two individuals involved and explore the factors that may have contributed to this tragic outcome. The complexities of their relationship and the underlying motives will likely play a significant role in shaping the narrative of this haunting mystery. As the legal proceedings commence, the community eagerly awaits further developments. The coming weeks and months will likely reveal more information, shedding light on the intricate details surrounding Suzanne's death. The journey towards justice and closure has been a long one, but the recent developments offer a beacon of hope. With the indictment issued and the case reopened, the pursuit of justice for Suzanne moves forward, promising a clearer understanding of the events that shattered her life and left a community yearning for answers. As we conclude this video, it is important to acknowledge the gravity of the case and the impact it has had on all involved. The loss of Suzanne has not only affected her immediate family and friends, but also the broader community. Their unity and determination to seek justice should serve as an inspiration. The reopening of the case and the issuance of the indictment signify a renewed commitment to honoring Suzanne's memory and ensuring that her story does not fade with time. For the family and friends of Suzanne, this journey has been particularly arduous. The pain of losing her so abruptly has been compounded by the challenges of seeking justice over the years. Their resilience and perseverance in the face of adversity are truly commendable. As the case progresses, their strength and unity will be crucial in navigating the complexities of the legal process. The community, too, has been deeply impacted by Suzanne's untimely demise. Her disappearance not only shook the town of Bluffton, but also left an indelible mark on the neighboring communities. The collective desire for answers and closure has been a driving force in keeping the case in the public consciousness. The support and unity demonstrated by the community are a testament to the profound impact Suzanne had on those around her. As we reflect on this haunting case, let us remember Suzanne, a young woman whose life was tragically cut short. Her story serves as a reminder of the importance of justice, accountability, and the strength of community. The reopening of the case and the indictment of Timothy Taylor bring renewed hope for justice. As the legal proceedings unfold, let us hope that the truth will prevail and that Suzanne's memory will finally find peace. What do we know about Barry Morphew? That is the question that I'm going to try and answer in this episode of On This Day. Now, Barry Morphew was born on 13th of July, 1964, in Brighton, Sussex. So, he was born just over 3 months before the Great Train Robbery. He grew up in the town of Burgess Hill near to Gatwick Airport. And his father worked for British Rail. His mother was an insurance clerk. And when he was 12 years old, he won a local young readers contest with a story about World War II heroes. He said at the time that he wanted to be a writer, which obviously didn't happen. He left school at 16 with no qualifications. And then he got married very young, at the age of 19. And he had 2 children with his first wife. When he was 21, he started working for Sussex Police as a special constable. That meant that he could only work when he was not working his other job. And he was working in sales at the time. And he was described as conscientious and keen, but lacking in confidence. But after a couple of years, he resigned from the police force. And then in 1987, he set up his own business as a builder. He lived in Crawley with his wife and their 2 children. And he was described as an outstanding father who was dedicated to his children and would often take them out fishing. It's also believed that he was a member of a local angling club. In 1991, he began a relationship with Suzanne, a divorcee with 2 children. They moved in together in 1992 and they married a year later. And in 1994, they bought a farmhouse called Gumberry in the village of Ashdown. It was here that he met William and Penelope Lay. The Lays were an elderly childless couple who had lived in the area all of their lives. They were well known and well liked locally. Barry became friends with them and he offered to do building work on their home. But it soon became apparent that there was more going on between Barry and Penelope. On April 1995, the Lays went missing. Their Land Rover was found abandoned on a lane near the South Downs. But their whereabouts were unknown. Barry told police that he last saw them on April. He said that he had been working on their house, but it soon became apparent that he was lying. A neighbor reported seeing the Lays through their window on the evening of April. And then on May, human remains were discovered in a septic tank at the Morphews' home. The remains were identified as belonging to the Lays. Barry Morphew was arrested and charged with their murder. Throughout the early stages of the investigation, Morphew came across as being helpful and cooperative. He agreed to let the police search his home. He allowed them to take samples of his DNA. He answered questions without a lawyer present, and he even agreed to sit down and have his photograph taken with the senior investigating officer. All of this was done before he had received any formal caution. Now, some people believe that this was simply because he was innocent and had nothing to hide. Others felt that he knew full well what he was doing and that this was a clever tactic to get the sympathy of the police and the press. When asked why he had allowed the police to take his DNA, he said that he had nothing to hide and he wanted to prove his innocence. In fact, he was so confident that he would be cleared that he said that he would bet his life on it. He said that he had been working alone on the building project and that he had not seen Penelope since April. He admitted that he had lied about where he was on the day that the Lays disappeared. But he said that he did this because he was having an affair with Mrs. Lay and he didn't want his wife to find out. He said that he had been having an affair with her for 6 months and that he had discussed leaving his wife to be with Penelope. But he insisted that he had never killed the Lays. He claimed that after the murders, he had disposed of their bodies in the septic tank and then he had driven off in their Land Rover. He said that he had hidden the vehicle nearby because he had panicked about what people would think if they saw him driving the Lays' car. He said that he had returned to the scene of the crime to retrieve some of his tools and to collect a shotgun that he had left there. And he claimed that he had spoken to Penelope's sister on the phone and that she had told him that the Lays were alive and well in France. Barry Morphew's behavior during this stage of the investigation was analyzed by many in the media and the majority of them believed that he was innocent. This was because at that stage the evidence against him was entirely circumstantial. The body had not yet been found and neither the prosecution nor the police could actually link him directly to the murders. This was backed up by a number of character witnesses who came forward to defend him. A friend of Morphew's from work said that he couldn't believe the charges. He said, "I don't think Barry is capable of harming a fly." A close friend of the family said that Barry would never hurt a hair on the old people's heads. It's just not his nature. Another neighbor said that Barry was honest, trustworthy and reliable and would never have harmed anyone. His brother-in-law said that the police had made a terrible mistake. He said, "I can't understand why they are accusing him. If they only knew him, they would know he's not capable of such violence. He's a mild-mannered man. He's a family man who takes his kids fishing and bowls with his wife. It's a complete mystery why anybody would want to harm him." However, the public opinion shifted when more details of the case were revealed. First, the bodies of the Lays were found in the septic tank. And then it was revealed that Barry Morphew had taken out a large life insurance policy on his wife just 3 weeks before the Lays disappeared. It was also revealed that he had been having an affair with a woman called Jessica, who was 19 years younger than him. And Jessica confirmed that Barry had told her that he was having an affair with Penelope Lay. Barry denied that this was true. But the police decided to charge him with the murders anyway. When he appeared in court, he pleaded not guilty. But his trial didn't start until 4 years later. The reason for the delay was not because of any fault of the police or the prosecution. It was because Morphew kept changing his story and new evidence kept coming to light. For example, one witness came forward and said that she had seen him arguing with Mr. Lay about money. And another witness said that he had seen Morphew and Mr. Lay arguing outside Morphew's house. It was also revealed that Morphew had searched the internet for information about how long it took for decomposing bodies to be identified. When he finally went on trial, he defended himself. And throughout the trial, he came across as being arrogant, cocky and disrespectful to the judge, the jury and the court staff. He regularly interrupted the judge and he refused to allow witnesses to speak. He also accused the police of planting drugs in his farmhouse and of stealing money from his wife's purse. He accused them of making up evidence and of lying in court. He said that the whole thing was a plot by the police and the press. He said that the media had been on his case for 4 years and that they had twisted every word he said. He said that the police had turned his life into a living hell and that he was innocent. The prosecution believed that Morphew had killed the Lays to steal their money and their property. They said that he had taken out a life insurance policy on his wife in order to buy the Lays' farmhouse. The defense argued that there was no evidence that linked Morphew to the murders and that the prosecution's case was based entirely on speculation. After deliberating for 9 hours, the jury found Barry Morphew guilty of murdering both William and Penelope Lay. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years before he could be considered for parole. He was ordered to serve 25 years for each of the murders, which meant that he would never be released. However, in 2019, his sentence was reduced to a minimum of 19 years after it was ruled that the original sentence was too long. Morphew is currently serving his sentence at HMP Wakefield, sometimes known as Monster Mansion because it houses so many high-profile killers. During his time in prison, several other women have come forward claiming to be his former lovers. One of them said that he was obsessed with Penelope Lay and that he talked about her constantly. She said that he was angry and bitter that his marriage wasn't as good as the Lays. Another former lover said that he was possessive and controlling and that he was jealous of any attention that she gave to other people. Morphew's ex-wife, Sue, said that he was capable of great violence and that she feared that he would hurt or kill her. She said that he had threatened to harm himself in front of their children and he had threatened to take their children away from her. So, what do we think? Was Barry Morphew a cold-blooded killer who preyed on an elderly couple and stole their money and their property, or was he a devoted husband and father who was set up by the police? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The Gabby Petito case got extensive coverage from all the big news outlets: CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and NBC. There were many true crime documentaries made or in the works covering her story, including one by HBO Max and another one by Peacock. There's no question that the public was fascinated by this case. Every new detail, every new search warrant, every court appearance had people talking on Reddit, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. This case had a lot of twists and turns, and unfortunately, it still does. And with each new development, the media runs with it, and so do we. What is happening today? In case you missed it, let's catch you up on everything you need to know. People are once again talking about the Gabby Petito case because they just wrapped up the preliminary hearing for Brian Laundrie. For those who have been following along, this should be old news. But for those who haven't, let's catch you up on what happened this week. On Wednesday, the state of Florida released a slew of never-before-seen evidence in the Gabby Petito case. They allege that this evidence proves that Brian Laundrie was involved in the death of his fiancée, Gabby Petito. Now, if you've been watching this show, you already know this. But this is news to some people because they don't watch this show every day. The judge overseeing this case said that the new evidence proves there is probable cause to move forward with the case against Mr. Laundrie. He did, however, limit cameras inside the courtroom. This is why we can't show you what is going on inside the courtroom. So we're doing our best to illustrate what we've been told happened based off of the information that we do have. Let's get into the evidence. First, they talked about the van. If you've been watching this show, then you know that this blue Ford van is at the center of this whole investigation. Gabby and Brian allegedly took this van across the country when things started to get weird. When the police found the van in Utah, it didn't have any license plates, but they were able to run the VIN number and see that it was registered to Brian Laundrie. When they finally tracked down Brian, he was alone and he said that Gabby had dropped him off in Utah and that she was going to go visit her family. He couldn't tell the police exactly where in Utah she dropped him off or how exactly she got there. And he also said that he had nothing to do with the disappearance of Gabby Petito. So here's the new evidence. The police found video footage showing that after Gabby was supposedly dropped off by Brian, he went to a gas station and bought 5 gallons of gasoline and drove to the spot where they found the van. It wasn't just any gas station. It was a gas station that was equipped to accept credit cards. But when Brian bought his 5 gallons of gas, he paid in cash and he didn't stay long enough to get a receipt. This led authorities to believe that he was trying to conceal his identity. If you remember, one of the main theories is that after Gabby died, Brian tried to cover up the crime scene and dispose of her body in the national park. If he wanted to drive to the national park, he would have needed gas. And they say that's exactly what he did. They think he bought 5 gallons of gas at that particular gas station and then he used those 5 gallons to get to the national park. Now, what's interesting here is that both Gabby and Brian were on the account. So technically, even though he may have paid in cash, it would have shown up on the account that he used Gabby's card to buy the gas. But here's the thing, they don't have access to that account anymore. Brian shut it down. Not only did he shut it down, but he changed the email address associated with it. So it looks like Brian knew that buying gas with Gabby's debit card might not end well for him. There was more evidence than just the gas station stop. They also showed new video footage of the couple walking in the woods on August 12, 2021. If you'll remember, this is around the time that they think Gabby was killed. Gabby's mother says that's her daughter in the video. The authorities agree. And the video comes from a trail camera set up by a local resident. According to the police, the couple was walking southbound on the trail, which would have put them near the location where Gabby's remains were eventually found. Remember, these are just new details that have recently come to light. We've known for some time now that Gabby was strangled by hands, not by litigation. We've also learned that DNA was found under her fingernails. This leads the police to believe that Gabby was trying to defend herself when she was attacked. And we already knew that Brian was the prime suspect in this case. In fact, the police had this to say about the case back in October. Because of the totality of the circumstances, the investigative efforts and the numerous pieces of physical evidence collected during the initial investigation, the FBI believes that Gabby Petito was the victim of a homicide and that Mr. Laundrie was responsible for her death. So the evidence that came out this week really isn't new. It's just becoming new to the general public because we're all learning about it now. All of this new information led the judge to say that there was enough probable cause to move forward with the case against Mr. Laundrie. He is still expected to plead not guilty. And in the coming months, we will learn if he will face life in prison or even the death penalty. But not everyone is happy with the way this case is being handled. Some people think that the police should have done more to find Gabby sooner. And we have a new case that may prove them right. A woman named Pamela C. Crane went missing in April 2021. That's 4 months before Gabby Petito went missing. She was last seen getting into a white van with an unidentified man. Her family reported her missing, but the police didn't do much to find her. That's because the police said that Pamela had gone missing before and always turned up safe and sound. So they assumed that the same thing happened again. It wasn't until 6 months later, October 2021, that they issued an endangered missing person alert. Pamela's car was found abandoned at the Sarasota-Bradenton International Airport. She had taken out a rideshare from the airport to go to a hotel. And that's when she was last seen alive. The problem is that when the police checked the hotel, she wasn't there. But rather than issue an endangered missing person alert, they issued a missing child alert. Why? Well, they said that Pamela had mental health issues and that she was possibly suicidal. Now, her family says that Pamela wouldn't have harmed herself. According to her sister, she was the happiest she had ever been. Just weeks before she disappeared, Pamela had gotten a job at a local Domino's and was excited to start working. She also recently reconnected with her birth mother, someone she hadn't spoken to in 38 years. Her family believes that whoever took her from the hotel may have kidnapped her. This case shows how overworked the police are and how hard it is to get help when you need it. With Gabby, it was different because she was a 22-year-old white girl. People cared about her case. They talked about it online. They put pressure on the police and the government to find her. With Pamela, nobody cared. She didn't have anyone talking about her online. Nobody was asking questions. No one was demanding answers. And that's probably what happened to her. Unfortunately, Pamela hasn't been found yet. And her family is angry at the police for not doing their jobs. Let us know what you think about this case. Do you think Brian Laundrie is guilty? Do you think Pamela Crane was kidnapped? Should the police have done more to find her? Let us know your thoughts down below. If you want to know more about famous missing person cases, then check out the playlist. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got new episodes every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and be safe out there.